We live in a very processed world, and it's very difficult for parents today to navigate through that because society is not really supporting parents in raising healthy eaters.
Welcome to this week's episode of Indigo Living on the Couch series. Each week I invite a special guest to inspire you and inspire me. Now this month we focused on wellness, well-being, and leading women in that field to really talk about the next step moving forward and how to have an inspiring and healthy life. Now, the next guest I have on is truly the voice of healthy living, not only for us, but for children too. Please welcome Bernadette Abraham. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rosamond. It's a real pleasure being here.
So let's talk about healthy living. I mean, I referenced your Instagram site just for quick tips. To me, it's simplified, it's easy, and it gets to the point. How important has social media impacted your business?
You know, it's a very important vehicle, I always say, to drive that message home because a lot of people are very confused. There's a lot of topics out there. You can Google search any information, you'll get a lot of conflicting information. So I like to take complex topics and really break them down into simple, easy to understand information that people can then take and implement right away. I like to give practical tips so that they can make those changes into their lives right away.
It's amazing and it's truly inspiring. We talk about, I mean, for me in my world, it's whether it's how to get glowing skin or, maintain my weight, but how do you carry those key messaging of living healthy to this younger generation of children?
Well, we live in a very processed world, and it's very difficult for parents today to navigate through that because society is not really supporting parents in raising healthy eaters. So while you might be bringing healthy foods, superfoods home, and there are a lot of tips and strategies to try to get your kids to eat these foods. One is obviously being the example, right? Monkey see, monkey do. A lot of times I'll be eating something and all of a sudden my kids steal my food. It always seems to look better on mom's plate.
Yeah.
So obviously you have to be the example. Really, it's start at home. Build that foundation at home, bring home the healthier alternatives to all of the junk foods that children want, but find the better versions.
How important is it how do you keep your gut clean? That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they say all disease begins in the gut.
Yeah.
The majority of disease begins in the gut, and it's absolutely true. And that's because our digestive system, people don't realize, but they think that you just eat, goes in one end and it comes out the other, and the body kind of just does something in between. So we are essentially made up of the foods that we eat. And so when they say you are what you eat, I'll take it one step further and say you are what you eat, digest, and absorb.
What is your thoughts on the world of organics? I'm sure you have a good answer for us.
So there's a lot of people who don't trust the organic label, and that comes from the fact that yes, different countries have different regulating bodies. Some is being regulated at a federal level, and others have organizations and these bodies that act on behalf of the governments. Now, having said that, does organic mean that everything is healthy? No, because in the 80s, they allowed synthetic additives to be added into organic food, and that just made the organic industry boom. And what happened is they gave way to organic chips and organic sodas and organic ice cream. Does that mean that that's healthy for you? Not necessarily. I mean, it's organic, which means, by definition, organic means that it's pesticide-free, chemical-free, right? Insecticide-free, it's non-GMO, and it doesn't have any sludge or petroleum-based fertilizers that were used. So from that perspective, yes, it's healthier because it doesn't have any of those chemicals. But at the end of the day, you have to judge, is this food processed food? Is it something that is going to nourish me or not, aside from the chemicals and the fact if it's genetically modified or not. So not all organic food is healthy. You still have to make that conscious decision. Is it a food product or is it a whole food?
Those are really good tips. So it's no surprise you are a wealth of knowledge. So you have a book coming out.
Yes.
Because there's so much knowledge that you have to share with us. I can ask you lots of questions, but I think we have to go out and buy your book. But how did the book start? I mean, it's a great, everyone I interview has this great story of being an entrepreneur, and I think this is where it's led you. You truly are an entrepreneur. You have a wealth of knowledge which you're sharing with the world, and now you are starting this brand, which is going to start with your first book. Yeah. How did that start?
I always knew I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to have a book written by the time I was 30, but I never knew about what. And it wasn't until this one moment, we traveled to Florida with our family, to Orlando, Disney, and my sister and her kids joined us. And my nephews were 13 and 15 at the time. And that week that we spent together made me realize how much of an impact I can have on children and people in general just by increasing their level of awareness through education. And during that week, I took every opportunity I could to educate those boys. They were making fun of their health nut aunt, right? The green smoothies and the green juices that I was feeding my kids. I mean, they were drinking sodas and they were drinking juices and very processed foods, nothing like what my kids were eating, and so they saw that contrast. So I used that trip as an opportunity to educate them how to read labels, what does genetic modification mean, that not everything organic is healthy, and that healthy doesn't necessarily mean boring and tasteless. And then I had another client who had a son who was obese. He was 12 years old, and she needed help, and she came to me and she said, "What are you feeding your children, and how can I get my son to eat healthier?" And just like that, I had the idea, and I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm going to write about. There are hundreds of other parents out there who are facing the exact same situation that I'm facing, that I'm struggling with, because society isn't helping parents to raise healthy eaters.
So I was lucky enough to have a little sneak peek of the book, and what I was most impressed about was how important it is to communicate with your kids. And not everyone can successfully communicate to younger generation or adolescents. And you have mastered this. You have almost created a script to help parents speak to their kids.
It's a learn to teach book. So I am not just teaching the parents, but then I'm giving the parents the information in a very simple, understandable way so that they can read that script to their kids and explain to them why sugar is so bad, you know, why they shouldn't be consuming all of these different ingredients. And it's broken down in a way so that parents can then very easily understand it themselves and then translate it to their kids.
So my last question, which is for all my guests that join us on set, is what it means to live beautifully for you.
Okay. To me, it means, number one, to have good health, living with good health, being surrounded with family, the love of family and friends who support you, and most importantly, waking up grateful every morning and just being content with what you have and the moment that you live in.
Thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your wealth of knowledge with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching us every week. It is so lovely to hear your comments. Make sure you follow us on Indigo Living UAE, turn on those notifications, like and comment below, and we'll see you next week.